and this is a huge thing that I'm so passionate about, is that if we pull back on creating content on social media, if we pull back on creating content on, blog posts or the internet or whatever, on LinkedIn, all these different things, we are removing our voices from what these AI tools are being trained on.
Right.
So the more content that we put out, the more our voice is heard in the world of the internet, then we are actually seasoning the way that these voices, the way that these tools are putting out information. So if I've heard from some people, I don't like, in the beginning especially, I don't like AI, I'm not going to use it. And I was like, you have a duty to use it because we want to be feeding the system. Now, you can turn your ChatGPT account off or on as to whether or not you want it to give information back to the system if you want it to be training on you. But I wouldn't even worry so much about the ChatGPT side of it as much as I'm concerned about the content side.
Right.
That if we don't speak up on the internet, these AI tools are going to be trained on things that we don't, places where we don't exist.
Yeah, exactly. And that's a lot of places. What if stepping into your full power could actually be joyful? What if career transformation didn't have to be overwhelming? And what if your authentic voice could create ripple effects of impact far beyond what you'd imagined? Hi, everyone. I'm Giovanna. And if you're new here, welcome to the Well Woman Show. This is where we explore the intersection of systems change and personal growth. In this episode, I sit down with Molly Mahoney, a leading female voice in artificial intelligence who embodies all four of our core values: joy, ease, impact, and trust. I just knew that I needed to talk to her on this show, and it's just a great conversation. From Broadway stages to tech spaces, Molly's journey proves that success doesn't require sacrificing who you are. It requires becoming more of yourself. This conversation is a masterclass in pivoting with purpose, using practical frameworks to simplify complex decisions, and understanding why women's voices are essential to shaping the future of technology. If you're in transition, building something new, or ready to make your mark with authenticity and energy, this episode is your permission slip to do it your way. Before we dive into my conversation with Molly, I want to share something special that I've been working on. It's called the Well Woman Reset Kit, a digital guide and meditation designed for women who are done pretending everything's fine, who are tired of the hustle and ready to pause, reflect, and realign before stepping into the new year. This isn't another productivity planner or hustle workbook. It's a reclamation, a quiet revolution disguised as a digital download. Watch out for the announcement on our social media and in our newsletter. If you haven't followed us yet or joined our newsletter, this is a perfect time to do it. I'll put all the links in the show notes at wellwomanlife.com/352show. All right, let's get into it. Here's my conversation with Molly Mahoney. I'm speaking with Molly Mahoney today on the show. Welcome.
Hello, I'm so grateful to be here. I think you're just putting such awesome information out into the world. So thanks for
Yay.
you.
Well, ditto. So that's why we're here, to talk to each other about this, because we met years ago, I think, when you were like in progress with your brand and you changed over the years. But I just want to start, Molly, by just taking a little step back and just asking you, who are you in the world today?
It's a very, very big question that you get started with. I mean, I can start by what I think other people see as me, and then I'll tell you more of what it really is happening behind the scenes.
I love it.
So, I think publicly on most stages and most social media platforms, I'm currently known as an AI advocate, someone who is helping business owners to use AI powered by human authenticity. We talk a lot about your weird being wonderful and using those strategies tied into social media to help people to grow their business. And it's been an awesome adventure. I love that side of my life. Behind the scenes, I'm a mom. I'm married to a bass player that I met doing shows professionally. I was a musical theater performer for about 20 years, all over the country, all over the world. And I'm on the board of a local theater company called The Chance Theater. I'm also on the board of a studio called The Music Room, where I grew up. So I'm really in Southern California here helping to make sure that the arts stays alive and and advocating for that every day, like bleeding to these theater companies behind the scenes.
Yeah.
It's fun. Yeah, it's a really wild adventure of a life.
I love it. I like how you framed that. And so what I'm hearing too is that there's this like kind of online external, personality and business and that's really you.
Yeah.
And there's like all this other stuff, kind of behind the scenes happening in real life, so to speak. And I think that really hits home with a lot of listeners and with me because as women, we are always juggling so many different roles and expectations, and sort of how we present ourselves is such a big part of our identity. And so, can you talk a little bit about that journey for you and
Yeah.
sort of where you were?
It's been tricky because when I first started my company, The Prepared Performer, I was teaching singing lessons. And so I took everything that I had done in New York as a professional musical theater performer. And then I thought, what do I wish I had had when I was getting started? And so in 2013, I started teaching singing lessons through my own website. I had been doing that separately, but I launched this company in 2013. And so when we connected, I had actually just made a huge shift, or I was in the process of making this shift, and I decided rather than teaching performers to have a career or a business, I would teach business owners how to perform. And so I literally just flip flopped what I was doing and who I was serving. It was a great flip flop because within
Yeah.
3 months, we brought in $50,000. And it launched a whole new life and a whole new world for me. We launched a program called Camera Confidence,
Mm.
and it did super well. We started it at $47 for lifetime access. By the time we closed down that program, we were selling it for $5,000. So it was a really, really cool adventure. But throughout the years, I am like really big about learning new things and I get really excited when new things come out and I love technology. So in 2018, when messenger bots came out, I launched a whole messenger bot agency. And then in 2021, we started teaching AI strategies way before ChatGPT and the idea that you have to kind of dance with this AI. And so, all along underneath it, I was still involved with the arts and with theater, not as much as I had been. But even up until 2020, I was running a Broadway themed open mic night behind the scenes. And so I had this business that was very much focused on technology and business growth. And then I had this other part of me that was very much still running a full musical theater brand. And there's crossover, but it ends up being very confusing for SEO purposes. Like you have to be clear in the messaging. So we've made some shifts with that recently that we can dig into if you want.
Yeah, yeah, cool. Okay. And I just want to call out a couple of things that you mentioned here. One is just from my perspective of seeing things, and I'm certainly not like in the middle of any sort of AI anything,
Yeah.
but but just seeing like your work and other people's work in AI, it does seem like you are a leader in general in AI and also as one of the few women leaders.
Yeah.
And I can see from your content and your information that you're a big advocate of women leaders in that space. What has that been like? And can you talk a little bit about your role in that?
Yeah, it's been such an honor to be honest, and it's been so fun. So, having started, I think we were actually the first membership focused on AI content creation because it was almost 2 years before ChatGPT came out. So, I definitely had a little leg up on that. But as things have, escalated and grown and more people are wanting to weave AI in, I've continued to stay loud about it and to make sure that this is something that I'm really intentional about is making sure that even in rooms where maybe I'd feel a little uncomfortable or I don't necessarily agree with everything that's being like the energy of the room, because it sometimes in these tech spaces they can get very I don't even know what word to use, but there's things where I don't necessarily resonate with
Mm.
the energy or discussion values wise, but I've purposely not let that deter me from continuing to show up with my full self. And what that has allowed me to do is and I do it respectfully, right? But what that has allowed me to do is that when I won this award recently, which is like sitting back here for being the leading female in AI, I'm able to say like, hey, there is more space for you in this space. And it's been wild to me. Like I have several images where I am the only woman in a group of people that are coaching about AI. And I can hold my own in like a boys club,
Mhm.
I don't know how much I should share, but I can share some pretty funny things that have happened in that side of my life. But I have made it a point that every time I speak, I show this one image from some good friends of mine had a group called AI marketers or something like that. And they had all of us as superheroes. So I was She-Hulk. Everyone was like a Marvel superhero,
Love it.
but it's all these men. And I said, you guys, like, it shouldn't be this way. I shouldn't be the only woman with all of these men on these panels. I'm often the only female there. And so I said, I say often, I want you to know I'm here to bring you with me. And I just, even over the weekend, I got a message from a client who was sobbing in this voice message about how grateful she was because of the opportunities that I've presented for her and for other people in the community. So I'm really here to like get my sparkly foot in the door and crack it open to bring everybody else with me.
I love it. And so let's talk a little bit about AI, artificial intelligence, for those listening who might not be familiar. I think everybody is at this point. But I really do think of it as a collaborative tool.
Yeah.
And so can you talk about how do you view AI right now in the world and
Yeah.
where we're going with it?
So I actually think there's not very many true AI experts out in the world. I think that it is changing so fast. Like just this morning, they made a huge announcement about an integration with Shopify. Just last week, there was a huge announcement about this new thing called GPT Pulse, which I'm really obsessed with. But there's so many changes happening across all of these different platforms and with all of these different tools that it's really hard to be an actual expert. What I think is that we have our own expertise that we can double down on, bring that into the AI space and use AI to accelerate that. So if you take the time to document what you are truly great at, who you truly are as a human being, have the data points in place, that's when we're able to use AI to accelerate that. If you haven't documented who you are, if you haven't documented your processes, your systems, your unique magic, that's when you get watered down content or watered down use cases, or the confirmation bias can be so honestly dangerous
Yeah.
because it just says, "Oh yeah, you're great. Oh yeah, you're great." So you have to make sure that you're allowing it to challenge you as well.
Okay. And when you say document it,
Yeah.
where are people documenting this?
Okay. There's so many ways that you can do it, but the easiest way that I find is just using like a Google Drive folder. That's the basic way. There's things like called a RAG, which can carry, it's like a vector file that can carry loads and loads of data. But for most of us, using something as simple as a Google Drive folder and Google Docs and Google Sheets and PDFs, that can be the best. So example, I am a digital hoarder. So I was already perfectly in place to do this because I had saved every social media post that I had posted on my personal Facebook profile in a spreadsheet from 2018 on.
Oh,
So I was able to instantly just upload that into the AI systems because I already had that. Now, if you don't have that, there's ways that you can download what you've recorded. If you have a book, that's a great example. You can upload your book. Sometimes when I'm working with clients, I'll say, okay, so let's pull your frameworks. And I have one client in particular, he said, I don't have any frameworks. And I was like, there's no way you were at the level that you were at that you don't have frameworks. And eventually he realized, well, I have worksheets that I give my clients. And I said, okay, that worksheet has a framework in it. So we've actually created several AI tools that help to identify what these things are if you don't have them documented. We have a framework, like a tool that creates a framework on how to create your frameworks, right?
right.
So we have a thing called the spotlight effect that helps pull out your unique brand messaging. But it really starts with the core of who you are as a human, and then everything layers on top of that.
Oh, okay. So if you don't have a book, but you have a podcast, how can you use, like, how do you do that?
Yeah. So you can totally use the transcripts from your podcast and you can load them into, we're working on a big project for a client right now who has a course, for example. We have all of the transcripts from her course both in one long document, but also each course module and each lesson in a separate document so they can be individually identified, things like that. You could do that with a podcast so easily. If you have show notes, blog posts, all of that,
Right.
they all work.
Okay. And so you put all this in, and then what?
Yeah. So are you familiar with custom GPTs?
Yeah.
Okay. So
But
the people,
explain it a little for
yeah. So for people who aren't familiar with custom GPTs, and I focus mainly on ChatGPT up front because it's the thing that most people are familiar with. But the idea of a custom GPT also is the same thing as a Google Gemini gem. There's things called artifacts and Claude. So you can do the same type of strategy in different tools. In ChatGPT, even with a free account, you can actually go explore what they call the GPT store. And in the GPT store, there's all of these little custom tools that you can integrate. It's like having a team of AI assistants in the back of your ChatGPT account. They have a little icon next to them so you can tell the difference between one of these tools and a regular chat. So with a paid account, even for $20 a month, you can create your own custom tools that you build with your proprietary information. So we have turned everything that we do with our clients into these individual tools that can be stacked upon each other. So most people don't know that inside ChatGPT, if you type the @ symbol, it will bring in, it like summons in this assistant and you can make them talk to each other. So you can load in all your data and then say, great, let me bring in my brand voice creator. So we have a brand voice generator. It comes in, it analyzes everything, and it spits out text that you can use as your brand voice.
as you would have said it because it's in your brand voice.
Well, yes, but it'll actually, so I created a system that includes all the pieces that you need in your brand voice. And so it creates that brand. The first thing that we do is create the brand voice for you. So then everything that you do going forward will be based on your brand voice.
In that voice. Yeah. Okay, cool.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay. There's a lot to learn here. And I'm sure we'll include in the show notes a place where people can connect with your.
Yeah, yeah. I have we have one that does an ideal client for you. It's very robust. It's really juicy. I'll give you a link for that. You can.
Oh, cool. All right. We can share it. Okay. And so, Molly, being on the Well Woman show, I'm always interested in the perspective of the women's perspective. So we've talked about a little bit about women in tech and women in leadership in the AI space, but what about women's voices in the content creation and like the whole AI creation?
Yeah.
Because obviously it's only giving back what you're putting in, right? So
Right. So and this is a huge thing that I'm so passionate about is that if we pull back on creating content on social media, if we pull back on creating content on, blog posts or the internet or whatever, on LinkedIn, all these different things, we are removing our voices from what these AI tools are being trained on.
right.
So the more content that we put out, the more our voice is heard in the world of the internet, then we are actually seasoning the way that these voices, the way that these tools are putting out information. So if I've heard from some people, I don't like, in the beginning especially, I don't like AI, I'm not going to use it. And I was like, you have a duty to use it because we want to be feeding the system. Now, you can turn your ChatGPT account off or on as to whether or not you want it to give information back to the system if you want it to be training on you.
Mm,
But I wouldn't even worry so much about the ChatGPT side of it as much as I'm concerned about the content side.
right.
That if we don't speak up on the internet, these AI tools are going to be trained on things that we don't, places where we don't exist.
Yeah, exactly, and that's a lot of places. So,
Yeah.
yeah, so making sure, and certainly at the beginning, I was very aware of that. Like, wow, this all seems very biased information, and so, what do you say to people now? Where are we now with that? Can we trust that the information that we get back out of AI is like not
Yeah.
biased?
So I actually, my one thing that I'm so grateful for is that and there's still time for this, but I've been using ChatGPT so often and so frequently. They just came out with a new feature called GPT Pulse, which is basically a customized It's not even news. I love it so much. I haven't looked at it yet today, so I could look at it and tell you what it says. But
Yeah, yeah.
it basically it's a mix between news, but it's really only the type of news that you would actually want. And I saw that Google just did something like this morning. I had an update, and Google's could not even compare because ChatGPT, it's like it's reading my mind. So I'm just going to tell you today. It says today's pulse. And this is like the highlights of it. OpenAI's Dev Day countdown. So I have asked it for updates on what's happening with OpenAI. LinkedIn form sync to high level. Now that may seem weird, but I also asked it to give me high level updates because that's a tool that I'm using and I want to stay
Right.
updated on that. And then it's also giving me, so it's like AI and social highlights today, and it gives me different things about YouTube and LinkedIn because I asked for that. It's also giving me, like, it's writing content for me. So it says a compact utility kit for small events. So I noticed the very first day, this is only the third day that I've had this thing. The very first day it wrote up a whole like instruction manual for how to create a run of show document for people who are speaking at events. Because that's what I've been struggling with the most is with all of these events I have. I want to make sure that I have all the proper information. So it read my mind and created it for me. This compact utility kit is because I told it I'm not actually running the big events. I'm speaking at a lot of events and I'm running my own smaller events. So that's what it thought I may need.
Oh my gosh. Okay.
Triage for membership cancellations. So it's reading my emails. It must like know that we've been talking about like what's our process when someone cancels something.
Okay. Now, how do you, obviously, you're okay with all of this, but I know that listeners are thinking, I don't want it to read my emails. Like, what on earth is happening here? So, where's the middle ground there?
Yeah.
What's
Well, so I'm really segmented in how I handle my digital life. So I work very hard to be the same person online that I am behind the scenes, like as a human, the way that I show up. But I definitely have compartmentalized things. So like my email for my business, which my team has access to, is only business things. I have a separate email that is only for my personal life with my kids and my husband and my personal finances. I have a separate email that is used just for like our Google Doc stuff. I've got like everything is kind of divided up. So I'm not giving it access to everything in my life. I'm
Mm.
giving it access in a segmented way. I also, with social media, I have just decided uh, I don't think there's much going back. I think that most things are out there as it is. So if someone really wanted to find out
Yeah.
all the details of my life, they probably could. So rather than live in this place of, ugh, like I'm not sharing passwords and things like that, but
Right.
I live on the side of things that is definitely more open, if that
Yeah.
makes sense.
Yeah. Yeah. Totally. Okay. And I want to go back real quick before we go to our break.
Yeah.
Um, to really call out for listeners the idea that you kind of flipped your business.
Yeah.
And I think that's so great for people in transition or developing their career because you can look at sort of what am I really good at? What have I been doing? And then sort of flip it or do something really creative where you're actually coming up with something sort of brand new that's uniquely your gift to give in the world.
Yeah.
And so can you just talk briefly about that piece?
Yeah. So that's something that I've just continued to get more and more deep into, and it's continued to pay off in so many ways. So when I first made that change, I had tried to launch a course called Prepared Performer Profits that was going to teach business strategies to performers, and it failed miserably. So what I did is I made a list of like all the things that I could do. And then I went through all the benefits that I could provide to other people. And I went through and I circled the things that I actually enjoy doing. And then I made a list of all the people that I was connected to. So I almost pivoted into launching a company that went into recreation departments for cities. I know this is so weird, but I coached a youth staff at a local city on how to be more confident and how to speak to the members of the community. And my family has a tree trimming business that does work for city trees. And I was like, oh, I have lots of connections to cities. Maybe that's what I should do. Luckily, that wasn't the direction I went in because what I'm doing
Right.
now, I think is so much better. But I started with that. And then the third thing that I layer on top of it is what opportunity is available to us right now? And in 2016, Facebook Live had just come out. And so there was this technology that everybody was trying to figure out. And I love being messy out loud. Like, I don't mind if I make a mistake in front of people. I'm like, oh, that's how we're going to learn, you know?
Yeah.
So I just decided, hey, I'm going to try this in an empty Facebook group. I'm not going to record anything until people actually pay me for it. And I use this concept called selling it first, which is where you validate your offer. And we've continued to do the same thing again and again and again.
Wow. Okay, cool. I love that. So for listeners, I love that framework, right? We were talking about frameworks. That is definitely like the 3-point framework that Molly just shared that you can use to figure out what your next sort of creative, fun focus could be. And Molly, we're going into the segment called Superpowers for Success, where listeners get to know you a little bit better. And the first question I have for you is, what does success in life mean for you?
Having fun. Like, if I can be having fun and making an impact, like, I love the moment where people are like, that kind of a thing when I see that we're bringing community together. Um, I just as long as we're having fun and there's community, impact being made, I think that is success.
Yeah, absolutely. And I love that you say, and I say this a lot too, like the more fun you have, the more money you make, the more fun you have, the more impact you make. Because here on the Well Woman Show, we are definitely all about impact. We're talking to systems change leaders, and I consider you in that group of women leaders who are really changing the way things are working for us and for everybody. But, it's not just impact. Like, we do wanna make more money too. Like,
Yeah.
way behind still on pay equity, and that is, we've gotta change that, and so we wanna be making more money, and
And I think a lot of that comes from, for myself, I will say, comes from, like, us asking for it. So when we can, like, the phrase you mentioned, we have shirts that say, "The more fun I have, the more money I make." And I think the more we can stand up for what we really deserve and not feel shame around it and not feel icky around it, the better.
yeah, and I think we're socialized as women to, not prioritize
Mhm.
making money. We're socialized to care for other people, to look really good, right? And
Let's not change. I mean, we can still.
we can still look good. We can still look good, but that comes with a whole
Yeah,
yeah.
so to be very honest with you, I constantly, and I've gotten so much better at it, but I just again had a conversation with my finance team where they were like, "Molly, you need to be more selfish." Like, because I so prioritize the giving piece because I just want to have fun and I want to have, I want to give, that sometimes I'll be like, "Oh, it's going to cost so much for us to add this extra thing in." I mean, I can use an example. So we go to Disneyland twice a year with our clients,
Mhm.
and we had a program that was $30,000. We included it in that, and it was a great bonus for us to add for our clients. We paid for everything. We closed down that program. Our program now has been going through this founding member rate, so eventually it'll be 15. Currently, as you're listening to this right now, it's at 12. And I was like, okay, so what are we going to do for this Disney day? And it adds up to look at all of this. And so we decided, rather than paying for the whole entire thing, we're going to give people the option, and they're paying half. So we're still contributing a bunch to it. But if I had done that for everyone and there's 2 people per person, like, the numbers add up. And I have to make sure, as the person who's actually in charge of keeping this business going, I'm not always just like, what can I give? What can I give? Uh,
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
right,
So,
absolutely, yeah, because, you know, as women, we are socialized to be givers and nurturers, which is great. We can do that and we can make money and we can be productive and we can be a part of, all the conversations in all the rooms, at all the tables. And you're doing that. And I appreciate that. And so the next question I have for you, Molly, is when did you know you were really good at what you do?
such a good question. You know, when we launched this camera confidence program, when we switched everything, those 3 months still come back to me as like I remember standing at this networking event, and And at that point, camera confidence, I think it was 197. Like the price had raised that much. And I remember feeling so confident in that moment, just knowing, because we had already proven, we were 2 months in, we were heading into the third month, and we had proven people were getting amazing results. The sales had gone really well. People were buying things on the back end. And I remember having this conversation with my friend Jamie, where she hadn't joined yet. And she refers to it all the time also, that I was just like, you're going to regret it if you don't get in at this rate, because the price is going up. And if you don't get in right now, you're going to regret it. And I remember feeling so like, yeah, this is like what I'm meant to do. And I'm really good at this.
Yeah, yeah. And so that was a real a moment for you where
Yeah.
you were like not even really trying to sell anything. You were just like, listen, honestly, like this is
Yeah.
good. You just have to be a part of this.
Yeah.
Yeah, I love that. Sometimes we get those messages externally, like external validation, right? Like, well, I was given an award, and so that must mean
Yeah.
that I'm good. But I love it when people come up with that internal knowing, because we have to be able to trust ourselves and our own knowing about our choices and our decisions and about the world.
Yeah. Yeah. It's good.
Um, Molly, can you describe a personal habit that contributes to your well-being so you can do everything you do in the world?
I would say, so something that's not business related, that is, yeah, I can give you something. So I came, I'm obviously obsessed with frameworks, but I had this idea that every once in a while, sometimes more often than we would like, there are these big sparkly boulders that come crashing in. And I have had a few times in my life where it was like, man, these boulders will not stop knocking down. Like, what is happening? Just like, there was one period of my life in particular where I was like, oh, okay, what is the lesson here? I don't know how much more I can take. And I developed this little trick for myself. I call it the method. So if you're listening and you're not seeing what I'm doing, I'm making like a little zip it kind of motion with my hands, and it's FFTT. So if you say that like makes it helpful. And it's 4 steps. It's FFTT, right? So the first F is that you face it. You recognize this is a big problem. Okay, I see this. Yes, it's happening. I think a lot of people assume that I'm kind of a Pollyanna, but I recognize when there's problems, right? So face it. The next thing is you feel it. So you allow yourself to be like, yeah, this doesn't feel good that this is happening right now. Then the magic comes, and this is what I've gotten really, really, really good at, is the twist it. So you face it, you feel it, then you twist it. And this is where you ask yourself, how do I make this a positive? How do I make this a positive? How do I make this a positive? And you're looking for that lesson. There's always a lesson in there, and it's not always easy to find, but I know, especially with like troll comments online, every time I get a hater comment, I'm like, yeah, baby, let's go. Because we do funny things with the trolls. So, but I used to get really upset about it, right? So it's a very clear difference now that I use the system. And then the final thing is, which I credit Pema Chodron for this, is that you thank it. And so how can I be so grateful for the fact that this big sparkly boulder came crashing in because of who I am on the other side?
Oh, yeah. I love that. And I think anybody can use this. So we'll include that in the show notes too for people to follow along. And what was I going to say about the Pema Chodron? Yeah, we'll include that in the show notes. I love that. Um, and so, Molly, what superpower did you discover you had only to realize it was there all the time?
I've listened to your podcast and I've been thinking about this one a lot. So,
Okay.
really, it's something that I felt shame around for a while. And that's, I think, the wildest thing about our superpowers. I used to have people still come up to me all the time and say, I love your energy. And when people would say that to me, especially at business events, I'd say, oh, thank you. And I'd be like, man, how do I monetize that? Like, I would take it as, even though they were complimenting me, I would take it as something that was like, oh, here they are with my energy again, which is so horrible. Like,
That again. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. And instead, recognizing like not everyone has the ability to stay in, and like our energy is contagious. And so what can we do to try and make sure that we are putting out an energy that other people want to be around so that they feel uplifted, so that they feel energized? Like someone once said, I was like, when I speak on stage, it's like having a shot of espresso, right? I aim to continue to recognize that that's really my favorite natural state of being is when I can be recognizing other people's amazingness and reflecting it back to them.
Yeah. So then your superpower is your energy. And
Yeah,
you've
yeah,
come around to like accepting that.
yeah. And not only in business, like I really, and it could make me cry when I think about how much it matters to me that when I am like, buying a bottle of water at a gas station, I am looking to energetically leave an imprint that makes someone feel better about who they are.
Hmm. Wow. I love that. And was that always the case, or were you told? Because a lot of times our superpowers come from a place earlier in our lives that were not valued.
Hmm.
And I'm just wondering if you were told
No,
you were too much.
I was, yeah, a little bit, but I think that my parents both just they celebrated that side of me. So while I have like one teacher I could tell you about in second grade who told me that I was too much, the rest of my life I was filled with people who encouraged that, and it's something that I know. I was on a cruise ship working as a singer, and I found out during one show I was backstage. There was one show I wasn't in, and so I was in my cabin, and then one of the dancers came up later and she said, "Hey, I just need to let you know that this is like really awkward to tell you, but the whole cast was making fun of you backstage." And I said, "What?" And she said that they had put on a show pretending to be me. And the whole thing was like, oh, find the silver lining in that, like making fun of my positivity. And it hurt my feelings like to the depth of my core. I was in my early 20s. And the fact that these adults could be doing that, it was like and I was stuck living with them for the next 5 months.
Oh my gosh.
Right.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
my sister sent me a card that said, "You are a stallion on a ship full of donkeys."
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
Right message at the right time.
Yeah, good sister. And so I have the best siblings, I have the best parents, and um, my mom passed away a couple years ago, and it was she was one of the most difficult things I've ever dealt with as we went through that experience with her, and just making bad choices, unfortunately, from whatever pain she had. So I have that part of my childhood, but I really do believe like she and my dad both helped to encourage that energy in a way that I'm so grateful for.
Yeah, because it could have it's really supported you. And
Yeah.
if you had believed that second grade teacher, you could have gone in a whole other direction, suppressing yourself and hiding, which is what a lot of people end up doing. Okay, we have a few more questions. We're running out of time. I wanted to ask you real quick, what advice would you give your younger self, say 25-year-old Molly?
I mean, if we look back on that ship, right? Like just keep going. Like, and I think learning that method at that time would have helped also because while I stayed true to myself in that moment, I don't think I realized how much that would actually help me to help others. So, I wish that I would have collected stories more effectively back then because I think there's so many things that we can learn now from things that have happened. So, like my digital hoarderness, I'm sure I have some things written in journals because I did the artist way or whatever, but I wish I would have been better at collecting those moments so that I could use them to continue to help others and help myself.
Yeah, love that. And so you mentioned the artist way. We had Julia Cameron on the show a few years ago. So
My gosh, I have to go find that episode.
we'll link to that in the show notes for listeners, just to make that connection. But um, Molly, do you identify as a feminist?
What's really funny? I do with a caveat. I really, and I'm just going to be super honest, things that are very like feminine goddessy are like nails on a chalkboard to me. So
Mhm.
I'm very careful about the way that I almost used the word masculinity earlier, like masculine. And I'm very careful about those words because I tend to have in many ways more of a masculine energy in terms of like one of my team members who I love so much. He said, "Oh, my daughter's just like you. She's really aggressive."
And you're like, oh, what?
And then he said, "Oh, I don't mean it like in an angry way. I just mean like she like goes and gets it, And I thought, wow. And this is someone who, I mean, he and I have a really awesome relationship, and I know he didn't mean anything bad by it. But I thought, how wild is that term aggressive came up in that? I keep lifting my hand and then it moves my camera on the Zoom screen. I'm sorry.
I know. No, it's okay.
So with that, but I think I guess I need to look at more of what the definition of a feminist is, but I would say that I'm definitely someone who is here to bring more equity and more. I used to use the word equality a lot until someone explained the difference between equity and equality.
Mhm.
So I'm
Yeah.
here as someone who really stands for equity and the fact that we can all have the seat at all the table, at the tables.
Yeah, I love it. And that is the definition of feminism. And on the show we say equity and, socially, politically, economically,
Yeah.
and all the ways. And so, but thank you for, explaining a little bit about how you're thinking about it, because we collect the way that different people articulate how they feel about it from all of these women leaders they interview. And it's really interesting to see how people are thinking about it. And more often than not, everybody does actually agree that we are working towards equality and equity for women in all of these
Yeah.
spaces.
And I think sometimes it's been interesting for me, which I don't talk about very much publicly. So I'm excited to share this with you. I, in some of these spaces, there are some people who have said, like, oh my gosh, why are you associating yourself with that person or that, man or whatever? And I have said, I really believe that if I can be in spaces where I don't necessarily agree with people, but I know that energetically I can handle it and I can have those difficult conversations, for
Mhm.
the people who are not comfortable energetically having that conversation, I can bring their message. I can be a vessel of their message.
Yeah.
And recently, one of my really good friends who I don't agree with on some things politically messaged me and he said, hey, I just wanted to let you know that at this event that I'm doing, I had someone reach out and warn me about you and say I shouldn't have you on my stage. And I thought it was hilarious. And it was fascinating to me because
Mhm.
I shared something and I'm really careful about I'm very middle
Mhm.
ground when I post things, but I shared a clip of a video that a very well-known male in the entrepreneur space had shared something that was extremely inappropriate about young women specifically, and how much I detested what he had shared on this podcast. And my friend said, and I just want you to know that I agree with what you said. And if people try to tell me that I shouldn't have you on my stage, I'm telling them they can go away, that there is a space for you on this stage. And I was like, thank you. You
Yeah,
know?
and that just goes to you showing up as you,
Yeah.
fully you, and kind of like what you said, like if you can handle it energetically, it's to be in those spaces. Because on this show, like I said, we talk about systems change a lot, and my whole career in public policy and advocacy has been working within systems that I didn't build, but I'm bringing my kind of agenda or my unique, contribution
And
to that. And so I think there is a really important place for leaders who are bringing part of themselves in their unique way to these mainstream places
yeah.
and being that voice for those folks who can't get into those, like those doors don't open for them for whatever reason, or they're not in those spaces.
Yeah.
So I appreciate that. Last question, Molly, what are you reading right now? What's on your nightstand?
Oh my gosh. I just started something new. So technically on my Audible right now is Happy Pocket Full of Money. There was another one that I just started to put on there, and I don't remember what it was. But I'll say also the book that I read more than anything again and again and again is The Big Leap by Gay Hendricks. I
Mhm.
love Gay Hendricks so much. Um, and
I
that one
love
is
that book.
I come back to it over and over again. That and The Little Prince. The Little Prince is my most favorite book ever.
Oh, I love that too. Okay, but we're gonna go with the big leap for our list,
Okay.
or we can put them both on. But
Yeah.
um, listeners love to know what our guests are reading, and the big leap was on one of my recent lists, like book lists that I was sharing with an audience. So love that. And Molly, it's been such a pleasure having you on the show today.
Yeah, thanks so much. I'm so grateful to be here. And yeah, if anybody wants that ideal client generator, I can say the link out loud or I can send it to you to put in the show notes. Either way.
Yeah, we'll put it in the show notes.
Great.
Just because we're on national public radio.
Oh, yeah. Perfect.
Yeah.
Hey, and I also, like, with that in mind, I just want to say how flippin' grateful I am for NPR. I could cry about that as well, like my whole life. And when I was working as an actor all over in different places all over the world, NPR and Planned Parenthood are the two things that got me through as an actual human being because there was no healthcare for women who were on tour. If I didn't have an OBGYN that I was like set with, I had nowhere to go. So while I was on tour as an actor, I'm so grateful. And I'm so grateful for NPR because of everything that you have given me laughter-wise, like information-wise. And I just want to say that. That's all.
I'm glad you said that because people in those spaces need to hear that and need to know that. Molly, thank you so much. And we'll look forward to being in touch. That's it for our show today. Remember, if you need support to live your Well Woman life, follow us on Instagram at Well Woman Life. And don't forget, you can catch the show on NPR anytime. Just head to npr.org/podcasts and search for The Well Woman Show. If you enjoyed today's episode, be sure to subscribe wherever you listen to your podcasts and leave us a quick review. It really helps others find the show. I always love hearing from you, so drop a comment or message me on socials at Well Woman Life. I'm Giovanna Rossi for The Well Woman Show. Until next time, have a super powerful week.